Hi everyone. We're going to start working on the structured historical paragraph tool with two supporting pieces of evidence. But the first thing we need to do is we're going to work with Unit 3, Day 24 to take this apart. We need to look at where our evidence is going to come from, and we're going to look again at Unit 3, Day 24. We're going to Theodore Roosevelt, Progressive Crusader, that lesson for 11th grade. Notice I said Roosevelt, fun fact. That's how he said his name, unlike his fifth cousin, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. FYI, just thought you'd find that funny. Okay, back here. Now, what are you doing? Your teacher may have looked at some sources with you. She may not, he or she may not have. But what you need to do now is you're going to look at different sources, and we have to unpack this a little bit. Within the progressive era, um, you're going to look at different sources. You're going to preview. I'm going to show you the questions you're going to look at perhaps before, and you're going to actually highlight evidence. Now, there's 4 different sources here, and I'm going to show you how to do it with one source, and you're going to work with the other sources. Now, I just want to point something out to you. These preview questions, we're not going to work with both questions. I don't want you getting mixed up. Even I'm going to show you because your teacher may present it to you that way. We are working with this question. Was President Roosevelt a progressive president? Meaning, was he typical of the progressive era? Did he help the United States progress and move forward? Or did some things, sorry, I just have to fix that, I'm a little crazy. Or did some things decline and go back? That's the question that we're going to look at. And I'm going to model for you what I want you to do with one of the sources. But before I model, just remember you don't have to look at this question. Go away question. Okay? Maybe your teacher might tell you look at it a different time. But when you see it, don't panic. We just want to look at if he's a progressive president or not. Like if you see this, it says click to add text. That's what you're always expected to do. We're going to look at this one over here, make a star. We are not looking at this one, okay? Am I clear enough? I hope so. Here, I'll even show it to you. I cleared it up for you, okay? See, click to add text, just like you're used to, based on the timeline. Was he a progressive president? What evidence support your claim? Now, what timeline am I talking about? There's a timeline by the Miller Center. It is a nonpartisan, means that it doesn't take sides, affiliate of the University of Virginia that specializes in presidential scholarship, public policy, political history, and strives. They really try to apply the lessons of history and civil discourse that makes conversation to the nation's most pressing contemporary governance challenges. They're trying to look at examples from history to deal with current issues. Now, here's my problem with this source. It starts here. It's really cool, actually. So when Teddy Roosevelt takes office after President McKinley was assassinated, unfortunately, and it moves its way through all of these different events. My issue is that you were told to highlight, and there's no way to highlight because look, it's a picture. So help. What do you do when you have a picture like this? Answer, if you're Google Slides, here's what I would do. I would make a little text box. Come on, text box. No, it's not going to let me do that. It's starting to climb all over the place. Not a good idea. It would let me, but it might give you a hard time. So let's try something else. Let's go to shapes. Let's draw a circle. And I'm going to go through, not Crater Lake Park, even though I was there, and it's really cool. I'm going to make a circle around Northern Securities Company under federal prosecution, but it's kind of messy here. I can't see it, right? Format, it's not going to work for me either, but I'm going to go back up top by my transparent color just to teach you how to do this. I'm going to click on custom, and we'll go to transparency. Whoops. Okay, voila. And now I can circle this. Now, what did I circle here? It says Northern Securities Company under federal prosecution. The Department of Justice, that's, the people from the government, they announced that the federal government would prosecute or go after Northern Securities Company, which was a really big Roman monopoly, a subsidiary of J.P. Morgan, for violating the Sherman Antitrust Act. Remember, a trust is a monopoly. Okay, so I'm going to circle that because I think it's super important. And it shows progressive era. I would also maybe circle that, the anthracite coal strike if I want to do that. And by the way, guys, just to save myself time, copy. And I am going to go to the next one. Watch this. Right click, Control V, paste it for me. I have a circle, and I'm going to move it up to the child labor law for the District of Columbia. Okay, that's great. Now I circled these two pieces of information. I'm probably going to want to get one more thing going. And I think, we always think of Teddy Roosevelt. We think of The Jungle, that book that wrote all about the horrible situation. Although I'm really nasty in my classroom, I talk about the yummy, yummy sausages, and they're like, "Miss, that's not funny." Um, the Meat Inspection Act and the Pure Food and Drug Act, because remember, he signed the Meat Inspection Act, Pure Food and Drug Act, meaning Congress passed this legislation, these laws call for both an honest statement of food content on labels. Yeah, that's right, we have nutrition facts for food. Federal inspection on all plants engaging in interstate commerce, meaning that cross the state lines, the national government get involved. This was a major impetus or push for these measures. What was it? The Jungle, that book, which really wasn't supposed to be about sausage. It's really supposed to be about socialism, different discussion for a different time, but it was a scathing or very tough report on meatpacking written by muckraking journalists. Remember the muckrakers? They exposed all the problems of the progressive era, which TR, meaning Teddy Roosevelt, don't write TR, guys. It's, even though people write it, it's not considered officially accepted. Personally read, and he was horrified. So now going back here. Again, your teacher might ask you to do this, but we're not going to worry about that. See that normal click to add text? But based on the timeline, to what extent was President Roosevelt a progressive president? Whatever supporting claim. Now, personally, when I see this, and I know I read that question really fast, I'd be like, what? I circled 3 things. What am I doing? I need to think about things, right? So let's try this again. Based on the timeline, to what extent was President Roosevelt a progressive president? What evidence supports my claim? Well, if I'm going to talk about, remember we did the progress and decline tool. If you don't remember, you might want to go back to that or think about that or ask your teacher about it. Think about a progressive, moving ahead. Well, what evidence do I have? Limited railroad monopolies. Now, what's my evidence for that? I'm going to go back to that first thing I circled. It says Northern Securities Company under federal prosecution. Department of Justice is going after them. So what did I write here? Limited railroad monopolies. Department, oops. Oh, that's the middle of a sentence. Let's try this again. I got to write a little more than that, right? Department of Justice, that's capitalized, it's a title. Limited railroad monopolies by prosecuting or going after Northern Securities Company. That was a railroad monopoly led by J.P. Morgan. They also signed, didn't he pass a Congress did sign the Pure Food and Drug Act and Meat Inspection Act requiring food labeling, and I don't like using the same word with another word, and supervision instead of inspection of meat production. And what else did I circle? Remember I said I need 3 bullets? Northern Securities and child labor. Congress passes child labor law for the District of Columbia. So Congress passed child labor. It's not an official law with a title. So let's write Congress passed a law, because if it was a title, I would capitalize it. Limiting child labor. Now, it says not as progressive. So if you look through that timeline, everything seems very progressive, but there is no mention of civil rights and anything else to protect African Americans, which your teacher may have discussed with you, but it's not in the timeline. Now, because it's not in the timeline, I'm going to put in parentheses, like, by the way, I already have 3 points. The other thing, though, that is in the timeline that I think you should say decline is it says Congress passed a law limiting child labor, but I left out in Washington, D.C. Washington, oh my gosh, Washington, D.C. No, there was no child labor law for the whole United States. No law limiting child labor. I'm thinking out loud. Law limiting labor for the spelling, oh my gosh, for the entire USA, only Washington, D.C. So these things are, well, not as good. So you see, they're not, you got to kind of think about them a little for the sources, but they're there. Now, we broke this up. We looked at it, and we're going to have to start looking at it for other sources and highlighting for other sources. But I want you to take a step back and think about how you took this T-chart and how it helped you take this whole complicated timeline. See, here's our circling that we did, and it helped us think about how we have this source and how we can think about President Roosevelt as progressive. Was he progressive or not as progressive? And maybe some things declined while he was president. I know it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to get your head around, especially when next step we're going to start looking at other sources, but I think you got this.